Hi guys, so I wanted to get a video together that kind of speaks about what happened after I quit my job and worked full-time on the business, and really a bit of a story about me, so that you have a bit more of an understanding of kind of who I am and what I do to this day, and how we get, you know, our clients' results at the SCC. And I think one of the first things that really springs out was that I started my first business, my first cleaning company, with no idea whatsoever. I didn't have a clue. I honestly didn't have a clue. If you don't know about me, I was working a 9 to 5. I worked as a barrister's clerk for 11 years in London. I spent 10 of those years at one barrister's chambers, and ultimately was kind of always the person that was always looking for something new to do, always looking at making more money. I was quite money driven when I was younger, you know, my career was great. I was in a really good career. One of my uncles had done really well, and he still does to this day. He's a CEO of a massive law firm now, and that was kind of always the footsteps that I wanted to go in. You know, I kind of saw his growth. He started as a junior clerk where I was, and grew himself up to a senior clerk, and then ultimately CEO of a law firm. And so my career goals were pretty set. You know, I was pretty happy with them, to be honest. But I kind of was always looking for something else. I started up like a bubble football side hustle. I was, if you know the inflatable bubbles that you put on and run around, that was one of mine. So I was making money in that at the weekends and things like that, and I was only young, very young at the time, and I tried loads of other stuff. I looked at a golf clothing brand. I was training as a PT to start a PT business. None of them really clicked with me. They weren't like the ones where I thought, wow, you know, this would replace my income if I wanted to go full time on a business. So I worked for this chambers for a long time, and there were so many pain points about it when I look back now. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy at all. And then got to the point, one day I literally was on my way into London on the train, and I said, you know what, I'm going to start up a cleaning company today. And that was because I knew a few people in cleaning. They were doing really well. They all ran it with kind of different models and things like that, but I kind of saw, yeah, do you know what, I can do that. I can start doing some cleaning at the weekend and take on some work and just kind of see how it goes. And if it replaces my income, then, you know, happy days. So I started the business. I set up a limited company. I started building a website, and then I was like, well, how the hell do I get some work? I mean, you know, do people just suddenly come onto your website and you get loads of work? Great. If it was that easy, everyone would do it, right? And it wasn't that easy at all. The first 6 months for me were a lot of cold outreach. I was doing loads of cold calls in between work. I was getting in trouble with my boss because I was on the phone all the time, and my lunch break I spent just calling different construction companies, property managers, like loads of different stuff, trying to kind of see a way in. And then I did actually like start getting some work, nothing exciting, nothing that I actually took on, to be honest. I was getting a lot of like house cleans and things like that, and I was like, well, how the hell am I supposed to take this job on? I don't have any staff, and I couldn't do it myself because they wanted like so many times a week and things like that. And so eventually I landed a deep clean at a pub in Wembley in London, and I was like, perfect, right, I can price this one up, do the job at the weekend, tell him I can only do a Saturday, and kind of see how it goes. I priced it up for £225, which at the time I was like, oh, you know, day's work, or I think I thought about half a day, and that would be it. Great, get the job done, make some money. Anyway, I went down to the job, took the trip to London, took some bleach with me, some wire wool, a few cloths, and some sprays, I think, and a mop. And I got down there, and the place was covered in grease, grime. It was absolutely horrendous. Honestly, it was just absolutely brutal. But anyway, I did the job. I remember the client saying to me that he'd buy me a beer if I'd done a good job. He owned the pub, so he'd just pour me a pint. Done the job, didn't get offered the pint, but he still signed it off, and I got paid. That was the main thing. I remember walking out of the pub saying there is no chance in hell I am ever doing a cleaning job ever again. However, I wasn't going to quit. I didn't quit. That was the one thing. I wasn't going to quit this time. Like this kind of felt like the business that was going to help me replace my income. And it was just, even though it was kind of a real pivotal moment, I said, I'm going to hire some staff. I'm going to get some staff on board. I'm going to grow the business that way, and that way I won't have to do the cleaning anymore. So at this point, I was kind of working till 2 o'clock in the morning. I used to work like 12, 14-hour days in London sometimes. If you don't know what a barrister's clerk is, they basically manage the barrister's work. They get them work come in, they price up the work, they negotiate, they do business development, things like that as well. So I was doing a lot of business development, going to a lot of marketing events and so on and so forth. Got to the point that I really didn't enjoy it, to be honest with you. It was just definitely not going to be the career for me in the end. So I got my first clients. And when I got my first clients, like I said, I did the job myself, which was not fun. Come out, I decided to hire staff. And I did. I took on some staff. I took on a few people, put them on a day rate. I thought I was paying them pretty good wages, to be honest with you. I took on a supervisor, and then I got to a point I invested in paid advertising. I got some more work. Some of the construction companies I was contacting, they started sending me some work, not a lot, to be honest with you, just little bits and bobs here and there. But I was profitable. I was making money. I was pretty happy. And at the same time of all of that, I was learning how to price jobs. I was learning how to manage the staff, how to manage the operations, how to get more work in. And it was painful. It was honestly painful. There was just no strategy there whatsoever, which made it such hell, just not having a strategy. I realised that I was running at about 15 to 20% profit margin, which wasn't a lot. It really wasn't a lot. I actually worked this out. I was looking after everything on a spreadsheet at the time. I teach how to use an accounting software these days, and then worked out it was like around about 18%, something like that. My first 6 months I had a tax return due, just where the business was set up, and started looking at the tax at that point, and I made about £18,000, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work, a lot of stress just to make 18 grand. If you don't know, I was earning £42,000 a year in London at the time. So, I kind of thought, all right, I've made near enough half my salary, can kind of run it as a side hustle. Yes, it's hard work, I'm working long hours, but if I'm getting the work coming in, let's just keep going with it, and I won't quit, and I'll just keep hiring staff and so on and so forth. So, at this point, I invested in vans. I got 2 vans. I got a load of equipment, hoovers, things like that. Invested in a jet wash at the time, and I had one of my supervisors crash the van. It cost me £3,500 to repair it, which was a lot of my profit gone. Equipment was getting left on site. Equipment was getting broken left, right, and centre. It was just horrendous. It was horrendous. There was so many pain points that I can't even begin to tell you with the staffing model. I thought I was paying them good money. I was paying some of my supervisors £200 a day, which, work it out, it's not that bad. They didn't really have any skills. They didn't need any education or qualifications, and I was paying them £200 a day to look after the business for me. The trouble was that they never saw me because I was still working a 9 to 5. They saw me at the weekends if we had weekend work and things like that. And it was just very, very, very painful, the whole process of it and everything like that. So it kind of comes me on to the contractor model. And that's what I switched to, a contractor model. And that was, like I say, the big shift for me. So there was a job that I priced up. It was just over £100,000. It was for a construction company that I was working with. We'd done very small jobs for them. And they said to me, look, we've got a job. There was a current cleaning contractor on it and he wasn't doing very well. And there was, £100 grand contract sitting there. It was like 280 roughly apartments. It's a place called Edinburgh House in Harlow in Essex, if you want to look it up. And I priced it up, won the job. still working in London, obviously, and I sent about 5 or 6 members of staff down there, and rather being quite naive, I just didn't know what was expected of us. Even though it was a 6-figure contract, I just sent staff down there in the hope that they could just start cleaning, and that would be it. We'll just go on, keep getting the job, keep getting the like apartments across the line, and you know, happy days, job done. We all go home happy. Didn't work out like that. I sent the staff down there, and then I remember I had like 6 or 7 missed calls from the commercial manager. And one of the voicemails specifically was, we've got 6 of your staff down here. They don't have any PPE. We haven't received any of your paperwork, risk assessments, insurance, the method statement, things like that. And they had no equipment or materials with them. And that was the voicemail, and I remember absolutely shitting myself, thinking, this is a really, really good client for me. They've obviously got lots of work, and I've completely messed it up at the first hurdle. The big job they've given me, we've done a few small jobs for them that they were happy with, done the big job, kind of ready to be game over. At that point, I thought about shutting the business down. That was probably the first time, and that was, you know, within about a year, near enough, of the business. So, you know, a year in at this point, I was invested in this cleaning company massively, and it was just hell. It was hell on earth. So there was a few cleaning companies that I was working with that just used to hire contractors. One of them specifically I got quite friendly with, and he told me about his model, and he was like, I don't really hire anyone. I do some of the work myself, but I just get other people's staff, and I get other people to do like window cleaning and things like that. And I thought, that sounds quite interesting. Why am I struggling with all these pain points of staff when I could just be using a cleaning company to pretty much do it for me, and I'll just take a bit off the top? You know, I thought, even if I take 20% on a 100 grand job, that's £20,000, which is more than I made in the first return after running the business with a staffing model. So it was really a light bulb moment, if you like. So I hired some contractors. The job specifically that I'm talking about, the 100 grand job, I got one contractor in to look after like the job as a whole, and then I got a window cleaning contractor in to deal with some external window cleaning, which kind of topped up the job. It was become a bigger job than what it was. and that just become a lot easier. I put them on a contract for the job. I wasn't having to worry about managing them as much as I would manage staff. I wasn't having to go down to the site every 2 minutes and things like that. And it felt so much easier, and I was still going to London doing my job every single day. I was checking in with a contractor, no issues whatsoever. They were managing the apartments as a whole. Like every time we'd done a clean, they would manage it and get me to price it. I would do my invoice. When I was invoicing with the staffing model, the first invoice I sent, I realised that I was losing about £2,000 because I was paying roughly about £700 a day in staffing costs. The first invoice I sent, I'd lost 2 grand, and that probably was within the first couple of weeks, including materials and things like that, because we were managing it like that. They could invoice pretty quickly, and they would pay me pretty quickly, which was kind of great, but obviously didn't work out in terms of profit. So I got sent a list of apartments that I was ready to bill. I billed the client, and because I'd done it on like a price per job, like a price per apartment as such, my margins actually increased to near 30-35% at the time. And that's when I thought, you know, this is the model for me. I've already nearly doubled what I'm doing in terms of profit margin at the moment on one job. So, and I had a window cleaner, like I said, so I actually started advertising for window cleaning services as well. I'd invested in paid advertising. I was investing in paid ads quite a lot at this point. Nothing crazy, to be honest with you. I'm only talking a few £100 a month, but because I had the profit to do so. When I was running the staffing section, I was still got to a point I was advertising, but I was using my salary to do it. Now I could use my profits because my profit margin had increased. So The 100 grand job became really, really easy. We literally finished it within about a year. I was about 18 months into the business at that point. And I started to advertise for different services, started doing some actual research on kind of what services I can incorporate under my cleaning business, and just see where I could really, really start to grow the business now. Because the contractor model was so simple, I just hired a new contractor for a service that I was advertising for. It made sense to really look to grow this now. So I onboarded more contractors and began growing the business as a whole. 18 months into the business, I quit my job, finally. And it was a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, because when I got into it, started seeing it was a good model, the cleaning company as a whole, although I was running the staffing route, I knew that I was going to quit my job eventually. I knew it could replace my income, but the 6 months that I ran the contractor model was when I quit my job. And again, really with no major strategies or anything like that at that point, but it just worked. The model just worked as a whole, and it meant I can quit my job because of where I got to. At that point, I'd made £90,000 in net profit, with roughly about a 40% profit margin. So I actually doubled my salary in London, more than doubled my salary. So I knew I could quit my job. I had no more boss, and I kind of had the freedom to really grow the business. Now, at that point, just so you have a kind of personal understanding of where I was at, I just had my first child, I had a newborn baby, I just bought my first house, and then I decided to quit my job. I remember getting advised not to quit my job too quickly, otherwise I couldn't get a mortgage and so on and so forth. That's another story. But I was in the position to quit and work full time on the business. And I remember walking out. I worked in a place called Lincoln's Inn in Chancery Lane in London. It's a beautiful place, absolutely beautiful. I remember coming out the steps of my office and just having this weight lift off my chest. It was the most unbelievable feeling that I can describe, honestly, because I just realised that I had all this freedom all of a sudden. I could wake up the next morning and kind of do whatever I wanted. I could go to the gym, chill out, didn't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you know, spend time with my first child. And I didn't do all of that. I did work on growth of the business as well, which is where I kind of really become scaling the business at that point, because I had so much more time to put into it. You know, I had the ability to kind of do an 8-hour day, standard 8-hour day, working from home. I was able to do a bit of travelling as well. I spent some time in Portugal for a bit, and just noticed the real freedom of the business. At the same time, I knew I had to continue to grow. This was my sole income now. I had nothing else, absolutely nothing else. But I had the money in the bank in the business to further grow into paid advertising and keep adding on additional services. I started taking on a lot of commercial contracts. At that point is where I even grew my services even further. There was a school that I worked for that said to me, "Is there any chance you can do some pest control for us?" Next minute, I was a pest control contractor. Just to kind of show you how you can grow these different services with the contractor model, it becomes really, really easy to do so. I was still earning advertising in London mainly. I got quite a bit of work in Essex, where I'm from. Ultimately, in 3 years, I ended up growing that business to 1.3 million in sales with roughly a 40% profit margin. Like I say, that took me 3 years. I systemised absolutely everything at that point. I kind of took what I was learning along the way. I invested in a mentor at that point. I had a business coach that I was working with day in, day out. He was fantastic. And we got the business to a point that it could run without me, which just, looking back now, it kind of felt insane, because when you're working a 9 to 5 and you don't know about any of this, you just think it's going to be so hard. And it did feel hard. Now, I was working crazy hours. You see all these gurus online, and they tell you about, yeah, I was working 18-hour days for 10 years. That's how I grew my business. Hard work. It was so hard. But ultimately, how we want a business to feel is easy. You want a business to feel easy, and that's kind of what my mentor taught me. So it didn't feel easy, because when I was running the staffing model, that was brutal. The contractor model made it a lot easier, but I was still learning, even though I grew to just over $1 million in those 3 years. But the investment with him kind of made the systemizing everything a lot easier. I learned about systemizing sales, marketing, operations, general standard operating procedures in a business that I didn't even know about. And that's pretty much kind of where I align the SCC with my clients now. I want them to have a business that feels easy. I don't want you working 18-hour days. Why would I want you to do that? You're risking your mental health, your physical health. When you put in all of that first, let's say you put your physical and your mental health first, and we want the business to feel easy, then we can operate it on a time scale that works for us and get all of that freedom that comes with it. And being able to really see profits and see services that are working to reinvest into the ads for those services and things like that, you find a really good contractor relationship. Again, it becomes easy. So that was scaling to 1.3 million in 3 years with my first business, which, towards the end of it did start to feel pretty easy. And like I say, the business could run without me, which was one of my main goals for me. So I could do some traveling and things like that. I spent some time in Dubai, and the business still ran. So that first business, I ended up selling off some of the contracts. I had a lot of commercial contracts because I saw an opportunity for kind of a new business. And to be honest, I wanted a fresh start. That business was just like still a bit mumbled up in my head, and it just kind of felt right to set up a new business. So I sold off the contracts on that business, and I reinvested into my business that I then exited, which was called the external division. The external division was actually a sole trader business. I only teach limited companies these days, just because over the years I've learned limited is the best way to go. Tax purposes, separate entity, and some of the lead generation that we use, you have to be a limited company these days as well for verification purposes. So the external division was a project where I took all of the services from this business that were the most profitable and put them into one business. And I grew it for 4 months, and then I had a 6-figure exit at that point, including net assets. And how that worked is I started pricing up quite a lot of work, got my advertising dialed in. I worked with an amazing Google partner, an agency that ran my ads for me, and I actually still work with them to this day as well. And I introduced them to a lot of my clients on the program as well now. We started winning some fantastic work. It was like pretty easy work. My contractors were dialed in. I started getting some nationwide work as well as I began to expand really quickly. My goal in the first month was just to look at complete expansion basically as quick as possible. I priced up a contract for TK Maxx. TK Maxx, if you don't know, in the UK is a fashion retailer. And I won certain aspects of the tender. I didn't win the tender as a whole, but it was kind of a stepping stone for me to say, right, let's really start looking for some pretty impressive work at this point. So I ended up landing contracts with Wimbledon Tennis Club, the London Mayor's Office. I had an even bigger job from that contractor, which was a project called Worley HQ in Brentwood, which was over 480 apartments. It was absolutely massive. The contract whole was about 130,000, and then there was loads of extra contracts on top of it. Then I actually won a contract with Tesla. Now, if you don't know about my contract with Tesla, it was an external cleaning and maintenance contract that come up from a third party. They were property managers managing the Tesla contract. They were doing different parts of Tesla, and they wanted to partner up and go in for the whole contract. So I helped them price up everything: gutter cleaning, window cleaning. We did high level maintenance, car park maintenance, cladding cleaning, drainage clearance. The list goes on. It was a pretty big contract, and we won it. We won the contract. It was the most amazing feeling. Having to be able to advertise off the back of Tesla, I was thinking, well, if I don't get this to $1 million in the first year, I'll be absolutely gobsmacked. And it just felt really, really easy. It just felt generally easy. But as with everything, I started, exploring. I was doing a lot of coaching at the time. I was doing business consultancy in London as well, and really, really enjoyed it. I absolutely love what I do to this day. It's the best thing ever, helping people quit their 9 to 5 and work full time in a business and get client results. Like seeing clients get the same results that I did is exactly what I want to achieve. The contract with Tesla, I had one of my London contractors approach me and say, can I buy the London contract off you and manage it for the next 2 years. It was a 2-year contract that we had with Tesla. And I kind of priced it up and looked at it and thought, I'm going to need like X amount to kind of give me what it's worth. And I thought, well, the offer was something like 30 grand, something like that, and it just kind of didn't really seem worth it because I had more project on the job as a whole and everything. Kind of at this point, I had an idea for another cleaning company as well, which was more commercial focused on contract cleaning and then basically getting upsells, which is the business that I still own to this day. So I actually set that one up, and then I had a chat with him and I just said, look, the Tesla contract as a whole, it might get me probably a good 150, 200k plus if I kind of run it for the next 2 years myself. So would you be interested in buying the whole business? I just put the whole business up for sale. There was work in the pipeline. The Tesla contract was fantastic. The TK Maxx setup wasn't massively profitable, but it was a really good name to advertise off the back of. And we were getting some good work coming through. There was really, really good work in the pipeline. We still had Wally HQ, which was like a 130 grand job. We got to a point and we agreed a 6-figure exit. It was just perfect time to do so. It was a 6-figure exit plus net assets, and I sold the business. I ended up coaching him for a further 6 months to help him grow the business. He now actually does multi-6 figures every single month, and he's like now been running that business what must be 6 years now, something like that. So it's just shown that he's really taken it and grown really well, and I take my hat off to him because I kind of laid the foundations. He's just taken it and ran with it throughout the whole process. So that business felt easy, and that was what I wanted it to feel like. It felt really, really easy. Being able to sell for a 6-figure exit in 4 months gave me so much freedom. I had the ability to explore more of the coaching, the consultancies that I was working with. I ended up being a consultant for a massive UK nationwide company that was doing roughly 55 million a year. I consulted them for 6 months. That was just a real eye-opener, kind of seeing really in-depth processes. And they actually had the same systems that I had set up. They were just doing a lot more money, which was growth of the business. But it had been running, 30 odd years, something like that. So it was a real, I'd taken everything and put it into that one business and kind of got rewarded for my efforts at that point. Okay, so what happened really after I quit my job then? I really want you to know what it was like after quitting, just so you can see, if this really is a good fit for you and if these are the things that you potentially want in your life as well. So firstly, the first thing that hit me was the reality of being my own boss. And like I say, that came as I was walking out of Lincoln's Inn at the time, and it was just the most amazing feeling ever, honestly. And then there was kind of 4 things that came with obviously the growth of the business and selling my other business as well. Money kind of wasn't a problem anymore. I had really good growth and I was able to start doing things like investing. I bought my dream house and start like investing in my kids and things like that as well for their futures. Time was just fantastic, especially when I switched to the contractor model. Obviously everything that I do these days is with a contractor model. Time was everything that I had. I put my mental health first, I put my physical health first, put time with my family first, and it just gave me that real time freedom. Location freedom was massive for me because I wanted to be able to go on holiday. I had young children, I could travel and things like that. Like I say, we spent 3 weeks in in Portugal at one point, and did a number of other travelling. I was in Dubai for a while, and I was able to run my businesses while I was in these countries as well, so that location freedom was just absolutely brilliant for me. Control. I had control over everything. Control over the business as a whole. I had control over my own life. I wasn't living, paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't having to get out for a boss. I wasn't having to travel to the same location at work every single day. And it just made life easy. Essentially, I built life on my own terms now. And that's what I've been doing for the last 8, nearly 9 years now, something like that. So that's everything for me. The freedom. That's why I wrote in such big letters, because freedom was everything. Having the freedom to kind of do whatever I wanted. And ultimately that's what a business gave me. And especially a remote service business that comes with that location freedom as well. And the ability to grow quickly. Now you've got to remember that everything that I just showed you previously that was like 18 months of hell pretty much for me. If I knew about the contractor model, I reckon I could have quit my job a lot quicker, even though I didn't really have the strategies that I know to this day, which is what I teach now day in, day out. So some key takeaways for you really. You don't need any experience to do this. I had no experience, no idea what I was doing whatsoever, yet I still made it, and I didn't have the strategies that you have as a remote service business to this day. Contractors as a whole is pretty much the only way forward to get you started. If you want to quit your job, then contractor model is exactly what you're looking for. Higher profit and less stress. That's literally the business that we want to run. We want to make this business feel easy. You can quit your job, but firstly you need to build the business nice and smart first. And I do everything with a process. If I have someone come to me and says, look, my goal is to quit my job in the next 4 months, then we do everything in a process. We look at the person's income, we look at where they're at the moment, we look at what the business needs to make in a certain amount of time frame to be able to sustainably grow the business and replace their income for the rest of their lives, until they get to a point that they can scale and sell. This is the ultimate point that you want to get to. At the same time, you want to pass the business down to your kids or your grandkids or anything like that, then absolutely you can do the same thing as well, but it is completely sellable. So let's scale the business and let's sell the business at the end as well. You get a nice cash exit, subject to where you are in the world. You won't pay a lot of tax on it, and it means that you can start something new if you want to, or be in a position that you sell it for a lot of money and retire. Entirely up to you what you want to do. And everything we do is goal based. What are your goals? Ask yourself now, what are your goals? What are your goals for this year? Do you want to quit your job and work full time on a business? If the answer is yes, if this is the business model for you, then I'll put a link in the comment section. You can click it, you can watch another training video where I go through all of this again in depth, and then you can book in a call with me. Have a chat with me, have a chat with my team. If it's a good fit with you, this is what we'll do for you, and we'll get everything in position that you can be in a position to completely quit your job. As always guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you soon.